Today I'm going to show you how to set up the dies in the Lee's 9mm parabellum reloading die set. Pretty much you can use this for all pistol dies. They're all going to pretty much set up the same from Lee. So first die we have, this is the 9mm D-prime and resize die. First you're going to want to make sure that your D-priming pin is flush with the top. The pin is changed or adjusted with this top nut here. The only other adjustment is your main nut, your main thread of the die, and that will adjust how far the die is in the press. Now let's look at it. This is the die as it sticks out of the press. You can see your D-priming pin, and you can see the opening in the bottom of the die for the shell. So what we would do is we would raise our ram all the way up, and when the ram is all the way down, or the handle's down and the ram is up, we want it to just come into contact, and you don't want any gap between the two. And that's how you set that one up. So now we're going to go through and we'll deprime one. We'll see how that works. So to deprime a case, we would put the case, first I'll show that there's a primer in the case. Put the case into the die holder, the shell holder. Then we'll start pressing it in. I'm going to go slow. There, the primer fell out, and you go all the way until you hit the bottom, until it's all the way against the die. And you pull it out, and now your case is resized, and the primer's been taken out. Okay, our next die is the expander die. Now how we're going to set this up is we're going to put the ram all the way down. You're going to thread this in there until it touches the ram, and then you're going to unthread it one full turn, and then kind of set the nut, and that's where we're going to start our adjustment from. Now the next thing you want to do is we're going to take a D-primed case, we're going to put it inside of the die. What we're going to do is we're going to press this in here all the way, and you should feel it engage, come out. Now this will flare the end of the bullet. Now what we're going to do is we're going to check this with the bullets we're going to reload. This is our case that we just flared. It's really going to be hard to see, but I can feel it with my fingers. It's flared out at the end, and the bullet actually goes in about 1/8 of an inch up to where the flat parts are inside of the case. That's what we're looking for. Just past the round part onto the flat part of the bullet. That's what we're wanting to go in there. On a new case that's been resized, it won't go in at all. It's tight, won't go in, won't stay in. As in a flared one, the bullet should be able to go in, should seat in there, won't fall out. So now your press can slide that down the rest of the way pretty easy. Now you don't want to under flare, because then it could peel the jacket off, and you don't want to over flare, because then that's a lot more case that you're stretching out. The more you stretch these cases out, they're not going to last as long, so you're not going to get as many reloads out of them. Now if your flare is not big enough, what you're going to do is you're going to loosen this nut, and you're going to start threading that in, and you're going to run another one through and try another one until you get it to the right flare that you want. If your flare is too big, then you're going to loosen the nut and you're going to unthread the die until you get it where you want. Okay, the last die in this set is the bullet seating die. This die set doesn't come with a factory crimp die. Now if you either crimp your bullets, this die is able to do a slight crimp, or you use a factory crimp die. Since the factory crimp die, I do not have it, it does not come in this set, we're going to use this die to do a slight crimp on the end of the bullet. And first, to set this die, what you would do is you would thread it down until it touched the top of the ram, and then you would rotate this back 3 full turns and then set the nut, and that's your starting point. Now if we're going to use this die for crimp, then we're going to start adjusting it from there. If you don't want to use it for crimp, then you can either back it off a little bit more or leave it where it is. and use the factory crimp die. So what we would do to use this as a crimp, we would take a flared bullet, and I would put it in the shell holder here, and then I would put it all the way down and make sure, and then right here I could just feel it, just the last little bit of that stroke, because mine's adjusted, I could feel it touching. And if you're doing this for the first time, you would leave this the ram all the way down and a flared bullet all the way up, and you would adjust this until you were just starting to engage. You could feel it starting to lift the handle on your ram, and then that's where you want to pull it out. Now I've ran this through the press, and what I'm doing is I'm checking to see if the flare has gone away, and I can feel it, and it pretty much feels like the flare is gone. There might be a slight bit of it left, and here's a flared one, and I can definitely tell the difference between the two. And the flared one, of course, takes a bullet, holds a bullet, it will fit right in there. Now this one, now that we've put the factory crimp on it, the bullet will not stay in. So that gives you a good starting point, and you can further adjust the tightness of this crimp when we actually put the bullet in with the powder. And one other thing you can tell, when you finally start using the crimp on this seating die, you'll see a shiny edge around that bullet at the top as where that engages. So let's go ahead and get some powder in these, and we'll show you how to do the depth adjustment. Alright, we got our bullet seating die on there. We're going to put our case on there. We got our bullet set into it. Now what we would do is we would probably start with this backed off, and then we would go ahead, go all the way down, and then we would take our bullet out, and we would measure that with calipers. So let's go ahead and measure this. This is the bullet that we just reloaded. Now one of the first things that we want to look at is we want to look at this crimp now that the bullet's in there. You want to feel it. You want to make sure that it's not overly sticking out. We're just trying to prevent the brass from sticking out. We're not trying to press, with this style of crimp, we're not trying to press the brass into the bullet. So if you want to tighten the crimp on it, make it a little closer, you're going to have to thread the main part of the die down. If you want to loosen it a little bit, you're going to have to thread it out just a little bit. And then you want to do this one first, because if you adjust this one, it will affect your bullet seating. It'll affect this one too. So after you got the crimp where it's satisfactory, then you're going to want to start checking your bullet seating. So I measured this one, and it measured at 1.085. It's a little short maybe for a 9mm, but considering it's a flat point, this should be a good bullet. So if you need to make the bullet longer, then you would have to come back over to your die, and you would unscrew this a little bit, and then you would run another one through. If you wanted to make it shorter, then you would take this portion here and you would thread it in to make the bullet seat deeper. And then once you get it to where you believe is right, I would run 2 or 3 more through and check all them, because you will have about a 10,000th variance between bullets. And that's how I set up the 9mm die set from Lee. Thanks for watching.